Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1147 of our daily content grind, and it is time for another monthly Q&A. Now I will say I cut this one off a couple days short because I will be occupied come this weekend, so if you put your question in before the first and you didn't hear it answered, then please just submit it again here in the comment section below. And as always, you should know by now that if you want to have a question answered, you need to follow very simple rules. Ask me quick answer questions only. Do not ask me to come up with entire narratives, entire casts of a new show, or anything where I'm going to have to sit and think about it for a long time, because we need to be punchy with the answers to get everyone in. Do not ask me for certain things, like no Gundam, no Gun Megatron. We've covered these topics a million times. Yeah, please don't ask me about things that I have, please don't ask me about those things. One question per person, strictly. Also, I don't have the rules in front of me, so I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head. But basically just keep it punchy, keep it TOS friendly, keep it to one per person, that kind of thing. And, you know the topics that set me off, so please avoid those. Let us begin with, is there any type of magic sorcery or magic users in the Transformers franchise? There are, but they are exceedingly rare, which is funny considering they go all the way back to G1. Merlin was in an episode of Transformers. The Quintessons dabbled in things that could be described more as magic than technology. So we've had it since the beginning, but it is rarely tapped into. IDW also reintroduced other Hasbro brands that also brought magic with them, so yes, there are some areas where magic does exist in Transformers. Which Decepticon do you think would be at a Thanksgiving table? Do you want the realist answer? Swindle. But if you want... but if we were talking like a traditional Thanksgiving table, who would you invite to dinner? I mean, any given Optimus would work. Any given Optimus would be welcome at a Thanksgiving table. I'm trying to think of Transformers who are known to eat, which is not very many. I know. Not Beachcomber, because he'd freak out over the dead turkey. I was trying to come up with like really chill, nice Transformers. I don't know. It's hard to say because they don't actually eat. Talking about the twins, who's your favorite between the two Skids or Mudflap? I don't have an answer for that one because I don't view them as two characters. I view them as one character who just is split into two different names. They act in tandem at all times. They they present the same personality and characteristics. They're not written to be two separate characters. The back of the toy bio might mention some differences, but the fact is, when it comes to the movie and how they were originally intended, they're the same character. They are one character. What would you think of Jetfire and Skyfire both existing in a continuity together, giving Jetfire the personality more of the Unicron trilogy and giving Skyfire the gentle giant science personality? That they would actually make a pretty good tandem between like the battle-hungry Jetfire from like Armada versus Skyfire, who is much more scientific and more happy to just shuttle Transformers around rather than be directly involved in the fight. They would work together pretty well, I think. How do you feel about fans of your channel who come into the store? It's actually really flattering. I know people who have gone very far out of their way, like people who have like flown to Florida to visit family or see the business or something. And they will take very long drives, like from Tampa's 2.5 hours, Orlando's 3. And I've had people come into Orlando and go, as long as I'm visiting Florida, I'm going to go visit TJ's shop, and they take the drive down just to see the store and see me, which is immensely flattering. I love to see it. It's always a thrill when someone comes in and visits me there. All-time favorite meme. I don't really have one in particular. I think I'm like everybody else. I'm just kind of like amused at whatever the new meme is. I don't have any like weird particular ones, you know, because I've been watching memes ever since All Your Base, so there's a lot in my head. Then there aren't any where like it immediately springs to mind, like, oh, I know that one. That's the one I use all the time. I don't really do anything like that. They amuse me, but I don't really like retain any, which is ironic given the actual definition of a meme. Would you like to see more Transformers with Beast robot modes to turn into vehicles akin to Alternators, Ravage, RAD-15, Crazy Bolt? I would, because they are exceptionally rare. They are exceedingly rare, and yeah, like they would be really cool to have. They'd be really cool to have. It's just like a much needed breath of fresh air in the franchise. Like you could probably get away with a whole faction that's designed like that. You know, if I want a SUV that turns into a bird, like that should be a thing I can have. See. I love asking fans, what do you think of a Shattered Glass Tarn would be like? Personality and backstory. Well, because we're trying to keep these to short answers, I'm not going to give you a whole backstory. I would tell you, I would relate him far more to like a noble paladin more than like the psychopath he was under Megatron. Because paladins traditionally are very devout in their mindset, in their mind and their beliefs, which does work for Tarn. So to have the have that equivalent, as a heroic character, yeah, like I think that would be a decent enough fit. I think the backstory mostly be the same. It's just like discovering Megatron and wholeheartedly believing in a just cause that he was representing. You know, to the point where like he goes like too far for Megatron as far as just being kind. Like, who's scarier, Tarn or Sunder? Sunder. It is a toss-up, I will say that. But Tarn is mostly out of just how powerful and ominous he is in person. You know, I can kill you with my voice thing. That is scary. But Sunder is just terrifying. He is like, like distinctly like horror themed. That, yes, it's definitely Sunder for me. Here's something I forgot to mention. If you have a question or if you have a comment, please mark it as such so we can go through it. I do read the comments as they come in, but for the sake of this video, it does speed things along if I know the comments so they don't get read out by accident. Have you ever thought about doing a video on the infamous Star TV dubs of Headmaster, Super God, Master Force, and Victory? I have. It is difficult to come up with things like that because it would require me to use some kind of clips so people have context for it. I can't just point out weird things like the fact that they renamed Blaster Billy, which is hilarious. But also, I will admit, I haven't heard the Star TV dub of Victory, so I'm a little bit behind. I've heard the Headmaster one, but not the others. So I'd have to track them down and hear them. What is your favorite Studio Ghibli film? Mine is Howl's Moving Castle. I usually say Castle in the Sky. But it does vary. I do like a lot of the Ghibli movies. So it's very much a mood of the time thing. What is your favorite color scheme from Megatron? I mean, I am partial to the original, of course, because that's just nostalgia glasses. If I'm thinking back to, like, when did Megatron's color scheme look the best? That's tricky. I mean, the Beast Wars one works, it's purple and gunmetal, like, because that's just classic villain for Transformers. I'm trying to think of, like, the out there ones. Like, there's, like, is there, like, any weird one? Like, I think the IDW, like, Bomber Megatron, that's, like, all gunmetal with traces of purple. That's a really cool look for him, too. It's going to be one of my, like, standby answers, which is, like, it kind of depends on what his alt mode is and what they're going for. So there's really cool color schemes out there that kind of look terrible. I think one I really loved was the gray, black, and neon green they were going to do to Energon Megatron, and then it got canceled. Loved how that one looked. What do you think of these BotCon-style retools using modern molds, and do you have any ideas of your own? So, we actually talked about this. I did a whole video about, I've done several videos about, like, modern toys that could be used for current, for past BotCon characters. Shatterglass Shockwave from Origins Jazz. Potentially, that actually throws back to their alternator look a little bit, so that works. G1 Sentinel Prime from Gamer Edition Optimus. I would love to see, the G1 Sentinel Prime done as a full figure. I think Gamer Edition Optimus has a good vehicle mode for him, but not a good robot mode. He's way too bulky for G1 Sentinel. Prime Arachnid from Legacy Shard. Yeah, I would love any attempt on Prime Arachnid. That would be nice. I don't know if Shard would need some extensive retooling. Armada Sideways from Legacy Animated Prowl. Potentially. I would like the legs to be redone so they could have a solid look to them. So, like, maybe a panel that folds over and covers, like, the tire, rather than the way Prowl does it. But that is close. Let's see. With the number of times in modern media making literally all ancient Autobots evil, do you think they should just rip the Band-Aid off and have a series set in the Shattered Glass universe? Not necessarily, because I think to the casual fan, and especially kids, I think Shattered Glass would be confusing. And I don't think they want that brand confusion out there as, like, a main series. What you would do for, like, a potential, like, ancient evil Autobots is kind of adapt what IDW is doing, which is to just kind of say, like, yeah, like, the Decepticons came up because of a corrupt Autobot hierarchy, and Optimus Prime represents, like, a change in the status quo, that kind of thing. What is your favorite Thanksgiving food? Oh, man, we're, like, getting Thanksgiving questions here in a Transformers Q&A. I tell you that you can ask whatever question you want. It doesn't have to be Transformers based. It is amusing. It is amusing when I see all these. I'm a pumpkin pie person. I like me some pumpkin pie. Which helps because, like, that's like an all year, like, festival thing. You know, you can have pumpkin pie into Christmas and it's still, like, seasonal. Favorite version of Hot Shot. If we're talking toy, then Cybertron. Like, that's the one I enjoyed the most. Character-wise, maybe as well, but from what I have seen, the little bit I have seen, the Rescue Bot Academy Hot Shot is not bad either. Would a Law and Order-like show set on Cybertron starring Clampdown, Strongarm, and Prowl actually work? I don't think you're going to get a lot of Transformer fans interested in, a courtroom drama kind of show. That I don't think that works for Transformers. I don't think it does. Especially because Decepticons rarely go to trial in the first place. You almost never see a Decepticon on trial. Let's see. What's the one Dragon Ball character you own the most merchandise for? Teen Gohan. His form in Cell and during the Cell Saga. I have a lot of very strong memories of that fight scene. I mean, I always really liked Gohan and Dragon Ball Z to begin with, and then just, like, the fight with Cell, and, like, him just, like, annihilating the Cell Juniors, like, it's just, love it. So, I have, the majority of what I have is Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. But and as a counterpoint, yes, I keep several cells as well. Would it be an interesting idea if all the Seekers, or at least the main ones, are a combiner team? See, this gets into my argument with the Dinobots, whereas, like, I feel their strength is in them being more individual and, like, autonomous. I don't think a team immediately becomes interesting just because they combine. In a way, I think that even removes some of what makes the team special and unique. The Seekers are a thing because, it's a jet squadron. if you suddenly turn them into a combiner group, you've basically just made evil aerial bots. And that's not interesting. That's just, like recycling something to try and get the Seekers to be relevant again. Or at least to get all the Seekers out, at the same time. No. I don't like the idea of them becoming a combiner team. I think they are more interesting without that kind of like forcing them to be a unit like that. What crossover team would you make into a combiner set? Oh my god, we've got so many combiners all of a sudden. Okay, what crossover team? I mean, are you talking about like the Avengers? Because like that's the easy one. And I mean, I'm sure Tony would love the excuse to build a bunch of combining robots for them. I think that's the easy go-to answer, because we have had Marvel crossovers. So like if they just want to go all out with it and just like pick a combiner team and go, hey, you are now representing the Avengers. Have at it. Figure out who makes that work. Is that like a Stunticon thing? So you just like redo the Stunticons. You just like have Motormaster just become this like big red, white, and blue Captain America mech. Be funny, be hilarious now that I think about it. Have you ever considered in making a second channel like TJOmega Gaming, where you talk video games and do playthroughs of Monster Hunter? Bold of you to assume I have the time for a second channel in the first place. Every bit of free time I get to produce content goes into this channel. So no, I would not be doing a second channel. Number one, because I don't like the idea of separating my content. I'd like to have it all in one place where it all feeds into the same monetary algorithm. But also, I did kind of do that, because when I was live streaming on Twitch, I had a VOD channel, which the VOD channel is still up. So you can see the playthroughs I did, but for the most part, no, I don't really have time for a second channel. Is there an individual member of a combiner team you'd want to give a solo outing to, in a future Transformers fiction, similar to how Derek gave Swindle more limelight as a character in animated? For me, it would be very similar to how it's based on Swindle for Derek. I would go ahead and pick one of my personal favorites to have their own little spotlight. For me, it'd probably be the Afterburner from the Technobots. I would say Lightspeed, but Lightspeed is a very mellow character. And I don't think a mellow character is going to make for a cool solo outing. So like Afterburner being like more hot-headed and aggressive, he has much more inclination to go at it solo. So I'd probably go with him. Do you have any restrictions when it comes to Patreon request content, or would you give anything within reason that doesn't break YouTube guidelines? So, for Patreon requests, don't ask me to do Plastic Addict or TJ TV. If you ask me for a review of a particular toy, then it will be limited to whether or not I actually own the toy, or if I feel comfortable reviewing it. Like I don't feel comfortable reviewing Titans because they are so big. It's very difficult for me to film them. And then beyond that, not really. I tend to tell people, like, if you pay the $15 a month, you can ask me for whatever video you want. That said, if you do something that I'm not comfortable with because either I lack the knowledge or I lack the ability for one reason or another, I might ask you to amend it or pick something else. So if it's something that I can't do, I do try to work with whoever asked it. Considering you have read Skybound's Transformers run, have you considered reading Void Rivals? I have. I have, because I've heard that it is a really good comic. The fact that they've had 8 or 9 reprints of issue 1 tells you it's a really good comic. It comes down to just like a time thing again. Like I don't really want to sit down and like focus through another book, as well as like having another book on my pull list. Maybe I might pick up the trades. We'll see. If Hasbro decided to do a toy that is meant to represent one character dressing as another for Halloween, what would it be the best way to depict that? repaint, pretender shell, etc. I think just a straight repaint, similar to how they did the Street Fighter crossovers, where it's like Optimus Prime as Ryu. I think it would be more along the lines of that. And it would always be based on like who feels like in particular like the most frightening, because if they're trying to be like scary characters. You know, a lot of Decepticons would dress up as Grimlock. I think if they're trying to be just like scary. It depends on when. It depends on when. In the fiction, they would actually have this little Halloween celebration. Can you imagine if they kept dressing up like Starscream in Season 3 because he's the ghost? Weird things like that cross my mind. So, no, we get at... No, it's a funny idea. It's a funny idea, and I think just like straight repaints would be the best way to go about it. Befitting of Spooky Month, what is your favorite Transformers horror creature? Not a bot, but a beast, like the Scraplets or even the Dweller from Earthspark. I do like the Dwellers. Chaos from G1 also works as well. I'm trying to think of, like, a good beast. Like, it's like, you know, not like a Transformer. I do like me some good Scraplets. I do like Scraplets because they are, like, a very different type of enemy and thing for Autobots or Decepticons to deal with. So that's actually a pretty good answer. Which clear plastic victim do you wish was re-released in normal plastic? All of them. I want that stuff eliminated. Right now, my short list of ones that I want in all solid plastic are Earthrise, Prowl, and all the subsequent Datsuns, all the subsequent retools, because it's their knees. Their knees are translucent plastic. Get that off of there. Get that out of there. 86 Jazz as well, because that toy's come out a lot. It's about to come out again. It's like it's in the listings for another run. Yeah, and that one has had clear plastic breakage issues. Yeah, the long and short of it is, does it use clear plastic? I want it done in normal plastic. Let's see. How would your D&D characters and their party members react to seeing a kazoo hanging from the ceiling of a cold, dark, damp cave, the way it actually does in the Monster Hunter games? Probably in horror, because kazoo is a horrifying-looking creature. Especially the red kazoo. The red kazoo has visual cues that remind me of several things, none of which I want to fight a giant version of. And that's all I will say about that. Yeah, I hate kazoo. It's one of my most hated monsters in Monster Hunter. Let's see. Now that we have a line focusing on the 13 primes, would a repaint slate remold of RID 2001 Megatron Galvatron make a decent Amalgamus Prime? You know, that's actually kind of brilliant. If they actually did Amalgamus as a pre-tool for RID Megatron, just to make, going with like all the different modes, I could see them doing the same thing for like 6-shot. If they want to do a brand new 6-shot, then Amalgamus could be a pre-tool of him. That's actually a really good idea. That's actually a really good idea. I actually really like that. How are you doing between all the weather events and such? Okay, so here's the update, and I don't even think I said this in a video. Our power was out for 3 days during the last hurricane, so that was fine, and we've been fine ever since. The weather really hasn't been bad since the hurricane, quite frankly. So it's starting to cool off outside, which is great. But because the power company kept having to fix the lines and having to fix the grid in the neighborhood to get everybody back online, the power kept flickering. And because the power kept flickering, my computer kept going on and off, on and off, on and off, and eventually, one morning, I went to start it up, and nothing appeared on the screen. And I know the diagnostics to do. I switched to a different monitor. Nothing happened. I tried my tablet, which is on a different connection to my graphics card. Nothing happened. I switched out the graphics card. Nothing happened. I basically boiled it all down. And I looked at the readings, and I, like, put in my password when necessary, and it actually, like, came up and I could tell from like the RGB on my keyboard that the program's loaded. So I know the hard drives were fine, but nothing was running, and everything was running, but it wasn't displaying to the monitor. So it told me my motherboard is burnt. Great. So I replaced the motherboard, find out all the stuff I have attached to the motherboard is so outdated because my old system was 6 years old that I had to replace everything on the motherboard, the processor and the RAM. And then once I got everything rebuilt, one, my water cooler didn't fit the new board, and two, it wouldn't load. It couldn't find the hard drive to load Windows. So I just had to buy a whole new computer, which I was not happy about, and I thank my patrons deeply, because you are literally the only reason I had the money to swing that. So yeah, I lost a computer, but the good news is all the hard drives are fine, so all my files got recovered. We're still in business. Let's see. What is the worst QC issue you've had the misfortune of experiencing on a transformer? See if I can remember this one. I mean, there's tons of QC issues I can remember having. I had the Cybertron red alert where the feet would get stuck because, or where the knees didn't work because of added plastic that they put in. QC. A lot of my worst QC is usually just simple things, like, you know, especially legs and knees being too loose. Thrilling 30 Rhinox would be my go-to Rhinox above the Kingdom version if it wasn't for those knees being so flippin' loose. It's so frustrating. It's always down to legs. Like, I can take loose arm joints. Okay, fine. So the left arm can't hold the weapon. I'll mount it in the right arm instead, or I won't even use it, whatever. It can still hold a pose. It's just don't shake it or anything. But loose legs are terrible. Loose legs like in the hip, like especially in knees or ankles. Though that is the worst thing to have, because then it's hard to even keep the toy standing up. So that's usually the worst that I run into. Would you want a new 2D animated Beast Wars cartoon series that takes place on modern-day Earth and uses toy-exclusive Maximals and Predacons as characters? I wouldn't want the toy exclusiveness. I don't know if 2D would be appropriate for Beast Wars, honestly. I'm also not sure if it would work in modern day because animals can't really, like, you would have to set it, like, if you're setting it in modern times, they would still have to be in the jungle, you know, so you're still looking at, like, the show taking place in, like, Africa or something. I think one thing, the advantage that no one realizes about Beast Wars is when you're going into the past of Earth, you can kind of fiddle with the timeline a little bit to, like, determine, like, what animals existed in the same general area. Whereas nowadays in modern times, we pretty much know what is where. So if you say, like, okay, they're in the Sahara, or, you know, they're in the savannah, like they're in the African savannah, and that's where the series is set. You are limited to what animals are in that biome, which that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. And it's going to limit what you can do with the characters. So there'd be pitfalls to it. I'm not sure it's the best of ideas. And also, I can't imagine Beast Wars characters in two-dimensional animation. If a new TF shooter was announced, which would you prefer? A hero shooter where each character have unique abilities, weapons, attacks, or return to the Warfare Cybertron, Fall Cybertron side where you have customizable characters, classes, and loadouts? Definitely the hero shooter, because I feel like there's a lot of special abilities that Transformers tend to have that are really important to their character identities. You know, like if Skywarp doesn't have some form of teleportation, then I don't think that's a really good Skywarp. You know, so things like that. I would prefer a system where you could actually get their full repertoire across. Off the top of your head, what would you want your name to be if you were a Transformer? I mean, the old tag I had on TFW was Omega's Prime, but I think Omega 1 was the pre-Prime name I had in mind for that. Coming up with, like, other Transformer names over the years, the one I really liked was Heat Streak. I wouldn't mind that. Would you want to see a group of human characters who have used Transformer-like bodies or mech suits to be in a series to fight alongside Autobot counterparts? We kind of had that in Master Force. That's technically what the Headmaster Juniors were. So you'd really be just talking about doing an homage similar to that. Now, you could pull in other characters from the fiction in order to do that. I don't necessarily think you do things like Jan is Star Saber. I think that's going a little bit too far. But I think John could be, like, a new character. I think, like, he has, like, his mech walker, the Illumina 2, that he could, like, turn into a transformer to pilot. That would be the same way as Kobe and his, you know, the scrap metal. The scrap metal that he customized for himself. Like, it'd be around that, in that vein. With Studio Series 86 Bumblebee being a thing, as we all know the next use of that mold is going to be Cliff Jumper. Which of the many uses of the mold would you personally think / could come next? Realistically, probably Goldbug, but I still want my modern Glyph and Tap Out. I'm absolutely right there with you, Evan. I absolutely want Glyph and Tap Out. The fact that we had two distinct versions of that mold in Earth, you know, for like in Earthrise Cliff Jumper and Netflix Bumblebee, the fact that we didn't get Glyph and Tap Out from that is a crime. It's extremely frustrating we did not get Glyph and Tap Out from those. So I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled if this mold gets remolded into Cliff Jumper because it gives us another chance at those two. What would you consider the Autobot equivalent of Starscream, Soundwave, and Shockwave, i.e. Optimus Inner Circle? So, there's always the debate of like the big three of the Autobots, because there's a big three of the Decepticons, Starscream, Soundwave, and Megatron. So for Optimus, it would generally be, again, this kind of depends on when in the fiction, because it seems like Season 3 and beyond, he had a lot more faith in like Ultra Magnus. But for just like traditional Transformers, like the traditional like arrangement, it would most likely be see, here's the thing. It wouldn't include like the big three characters. It wouldn't include, like, I wouldn't put Bumblebee in his inner circle to be like in the same rankings and same way that Megatron had those four. I would those three rather. I'd probably pick Grimlock. I would pick probably Jazz and Ironhide. Because Jazz was always positioned in the G1 cartoon as something of a second in command, and then Ironhide has always been like a security officer type, and is usually billed as one of Prime's oldest friends. So I think those would be like his core go-to. You have to put Grimlock in there just because, like, if you don't give him some kind of command authority here, you're gonna risk an uprising again. So I think that's the go-to. What's your favorite Transformers design from Transformers 1? Hate to admit it, but probably Sentinel. It does a really good job of getting across some of the past Sentinel Prime designs, and it's a really regal look, which is very appropriate for his character. I think it looks really, really cool. See. Comments. Given the box office failure of Rise of the Beast and Transformers 1, as well as Earthspark and the criticism against the toy lines, along with the other troubles facing the franchise, you think Transformers is in trouble despite its longevity? I think we're in a lull. Keep in mind, Transformers has been in lulls in the past and has been fine. Transformers at one time was just one. Let's keep in mind, okay, it's disappointing that Transformers isn't making $1 billion a year from new movies anymore, but you know what? Transformers used to be just one cartoon and one toy line. We got through Beast Machines, which was a flop, commercially. We had Transformers die, like, in the late 80s and early 90s, and it came back. So, I think we're just in this really low period. And a lot of what you're looking at, Rise of the Beast, TF1, Earthspark, A lot of that you can attribute to their partnership with Paramount. If they dumped Paramount as a partner and picked up someone who would actually take them more seriously and put more investment into them, I think you would be getting a lot more interesting results. So I think some restructuring is necessary to make Transformers more viable. It is in trouble, but I don't think it's like gonna doom the brand. Let's see. Outside of Megatronus and Liege Maximo, disregard IDW 1.0 Shockwave kind of shenanigans. Which of the original 13 Primes do you think is more likely to become a villain? I'm writing a story where Nexus Prime was the Fallen and killed Megatronus, but I would like to see your opinion on the matter. So, here's the thing. Moralities are very easily colored. So if you are creative enough, you can pretty much make any of the 13 Primes, short of maybe Prima himself, to actually be a villain. I mean, Megatronus and Liege Maximo, obviously, yes. But, you know, Quintus Prime, in the right light, could be seen as a villainous character. You know, if he is creating things for malicious intent or for cruel experimentation. Amalgamous Prime. You know, if you want to bring about a more chaotic nature because of his form, things like that. So you do have avenues for making just about anyone in the 13 villainous, depending on the motivation you give them and how you want to tweak their moralities, so they still have that character across, but maybe something's twisted about them. From what you've seen, what's got you the most hyped for Wilds, outside of it just being a new Monster Hunter game, and who's been your favorite in the newly revealed monsters thus far? So I will admit, I haven't had, because of everything going on in my life in the last couple of months, I've not had a chance to really pay attention to the new trailers and know and learn the new monsters. The new spider looks really cool. I'm really excited to see the armor for that one. I think just being able to swap weapons, like to be able to have a 2-weapon loadout when I go into a hunt, because that gives you so many more options and changes up your gameplay style so much. I'm a dual blade main, which means I don't really have any way of dealing huge hits when I need to, and it means it gets difficult for me to break parts on a monster, like horns and claws, when I need certain items for armor. So to be able to switch it out for a hammer at a moment's notice, that would be fantastic. Is there any design from the Michael Bay movies you think is actually pretty good? I say it a lot, and I say, like, the one that is my favorite is Bone Crusher. I don't know why. I don't know why I like that troll of a psychopath so much, but I do. Let's get this right. There are good designs in the Transformer Bayverse movies. They're just over-designed. They're undercolored and over-designed. I think just about any of those, with their designs simplified and given some splash of color to make them stand out a little bit more, I think any of them could potentially be a really, really good-looking character. But if we're going by just face value, yeah, Bone Crusher. I mean, of course, there's designs like Barricade that's really good. I'm trying to think beyond that. Like, who else is really good? Shockwave is an interesting take. That kind of thing. Pertaining to toy incarnations, would you rather fight Cybertron Optimus Prime, your favorite TF toy, to the death, or have Titanium G.I. Joe Megatron, your least favorite toy, as your roommate for a month? Both would be alive, scaled up to human size, and all their weapon gimmickry would be real. Here's the thing. I have way more chance of surviving a month with Titanium G.I. Joe Megatron than I would a fight with Cybertron Optimus, who, if all of his weapons and abilities are real, would be immensely powerful and I would be dead on sight. No. Titanium G.I. Joe Megatron does not pose a threat to me, because while he might be a terrible roommate, if he gets belligerent, all I have to do is, like, just kick him in the hip and his leg falls off. Did you ever one of those super cheap 1980s branded shirt and plastic mask costumes as a kid? If not, what Halloween costumes in general do you remember from childhood are particularly fond of? I am very fortunate in that the plastic smock thing was being phased out by the time I was going trick-or-treating. And for the most part, my family actually did pretty good for, like, giving me decent Halloween costumes. So, I did a Power Ranger one year, because of course I did. I was a Ninja Turtle twice. Once with, like, a, like, custom-made costume. Custom-made. I was wearing I was wearing pantyhose and a big foam turtle shell. My dad, I went as a clown when I was a little kid. It was so young I don't remember it. But the local firehouse was having having a costume contest. And I did win a prize for mine because not only the clown had a fire truck, and like my dad made a whole cardboard fire truck for me to wear for the costume. So we got that. I wish I had. I was so young. I barely have any memory of that. All I can really remember is like there was a game. There was like a game similar to like oh my god, one of the musical chairs. Where there were like things on the ground for us to pick up as prizes, and because of the because of the fire truck, I couldn't get down very easily. What if instead of storing the cassettes in his tape deck and deploying them for missions, Soundwave was able to make a more active role, gaining new abilities? But didn't I answer this? I feel like I answered this. I feel like this was in the last one because. See, I do think it's an interesting idea that it's like, because it is weird that Soundwave keeps a whole army of mini Decepticons inside his chest at all times. So yeah, it actually does make sense to give them some kind of ability, like if their abilities did transfer over. Maybe I just read this email when it came in, and maybe that's why I think I answered it. But like, I do like the idea. I do like the idea because it makes more sense of Soundwave like storing his cassettes. At the same time, like he could just be that powerful, if he had all of his cassettes into him, but needs to release them remotely once in a while. It's a different idea, but it's an interesting one. I think the last one I answered was if they were like armor up power-ups or combiners for Soundwave, and like that diminishes them. So I think that was the question last month. What genre of video game would you want a new TF game as? Strategy, hack and slash, Souls-like, etc. So I do think. See, Transformer fighting game is difficult for me to imagine because incorporating the transformation element into that would be so difficult, and I don't think you could do it cleanly. Let's see. Hack and slash would work. Weirdly enough, I think a battle royale would work. Because there's definitely 100 different Transformer characters you could go for on that one. Hack and slash works for me because that's Devastation. I think Devastation's still the best game we got. I don't like Souls-likes. I don't like strategy games. So you're working against me on that one. I just want some game to actually properly utilize the franchise and actually make like a AAA effort instead of all the shovelware we've gotten over the years. Do you have any favorite movies or shows you always try to watch for Halloween season? Not particularly Halloween, because I'm not a horror movie guy. Now, the cheesier Nightmare on Elm Street movies, those I might watch if I'm in a particular mood, but I don't have like any like Halloween tradition I gotta watch this type thing. I will say some Halloweens I will put on Hellsing Abridged. That might be the closest I get. One of the canceled Creo sets were combiners of alternate versions of the same characters. Do you think an idea like that could work for the next milestone anniversary, as in a full HasLab, or a new story take on the alternative concept? Let me read this. Once the canceled Creo sets were combiners of alternate versions of the same characters. I'm not sure what you're... Okay, so here's the problem. I'm not sure what you're describing. One of the canceled Creo sets were combiners of alternate versions of the same character. Oh, okay. So, like, a whole bunch of Optimus Primes combine into, like, one big combiner Optimus Prime. Okay. It took me a bit to parse that. I don't think it works as an anniversary. I absolutely think it does not work as a HasLab because that's such a weird, out there idea that doesn't really tribute anything in the past for Transformers that's, like, well-known or popular, that I don't think you'd get that one backed. Like, not even close. I'm not sure it even works for the Alternity. I think that is just like a silly one-off gimmick kind of thing. I think that works for Creo because Creo can just add bricks to make the different vehicle modes. Once you have, like, this set combiner, I think then it gets a lot more difficult. I'm struggling to even think of who you would use for something like that could provide a combiner with enough variety to actually be interesting in that role. That's the problem. Unless you do, like, retool a lot of aerial bots into being, like, a Starscream combiner. And then the Armada one would rebel against the others. Because, what if a cartoon introduces the idea of Megatron having a son? Like, maybe being established Megatron being far off in space and he returns to Earth only to show he has changed and raise a kid to be a potential member of the Autobots. I'm always weird about Transformers, like, creating the idea of having children amongst themselves in any way, shape, or form, because it just brings up way too many weird questions. Adopted kid, sure, but also, like, it's very difficult to imagine a Megatron who would have fatherhood into him, who would, like, find a young Transformer and see him as, like, a prodigy rather than like, you know, I don't think this is a Lifetime original movie where, like, the child who comes into their life warms their heart. I think if he comes across a young Transformer, he's just going to corrupt them into a Decepticon. Yeah, so I don't think that one doesn't work for me. That one does not, unfortunately, that one doesn't work for me. I more or less prefer the idea of, like, if Megatron, Megatron just comes around on his own when he realizes what a monster he is. With Transformers having gone to Minecraft, do you think they'll add more playable characters? See, I don't think they added any more playable characters to any of the other sets, so probably not. I don't think they're really eager, unless it sells like gangbusters, and unfortunately, I can't see that happening. But you never know. If Beast Wars 2 were dubbed for Leo Prime, do you think Johnny Young Bosch, Steve Bloom, or Scott McNeil would work for the voice actor? Out of that list, Steve Bloom has the best chance of coming up with a more heroic voice for that character. Like, Scott can do some heroicness, but I don't think he's an appropriate fit. I think Johnny Young Bosch plays a little too young in his voices to make that work. I need a voice with some authority to it, is what I'm saying. What has been the most wholesome con moment you've witnessed or experienced? There's been a lot. This year, like, one of my favorite people who worked MetroCon is, like, you know, retired, and that was, like, really heartwarming. It's like the farewell that she was given. You know, if I'm looking at, like, I'm trying to think of, like interaction things, you know, like, it's hard. It's hard for me to boil that down because, you know, I'm trying to go through like 15 years of going to conventions. I did get to see a wedding at a con once. That was nice. That was really nice. I've seen proposals at cons. That was cool. That's always fun. Let's see. What is your favorite Star Trek series and why? Toss up. Nostalgia would have the. It really is going to depend on what kind of mood I am, what I'm in. If I just want to sit back and enjoy myself for about an hour or so, it's going to be Next Gen. If I want to sit down for several episodes of something and I'm in a more serious mood, Deep Space Nine. Those are my two favorites. Did you ever do band in school? If yes, what instrument? Yes, I did. I was in band in middle school. I played a tenor saxophone. I only stuck with it for a couple years. During into the second year, the saxophone my parents were like doing rent to own, something busted on it, and we couldn't afford to get it repaired. So I had to use a loaner from the school, and because I was like, I wasn't able to keep up with the class, I mostly just practiced on my own and just like sat away from the class for the rest. So like they had like individual like soundproof rooms that you could practice in. So I kind of just sequestered myself into there for like half the semester, failed the class, and then decided maybe this music is not for me. But yeah, like there for about a year and a half, I could play a saxophone. Do you think new fiction should revisit Starscream having a sonic scream power like he briefly had in animated, or is it just as better as just a one-time thing? I think it's better to leave the sonic-based powers to Thundercracker, because that's supposed to be his whole thing, is like sonic booms and sound manipulation. I think Starscream excels better when he's just the most skilled of the Seekers. You know, he doesn't need a superpower like, you know, Skywarp's teleporting or anything like that. He's just that good, you know? I think that works for him better. I mean, he's got his null rays though, so he's got something. Would it be possible to get a chug version of Victory Road Caesar? I genuinely don't know, because that's such a difficult combiner to pull off when all three have to be the same size, but one of them has to become like 60% of the robot. G1 Road Caesar is not a great looking combiner. Not at all. Getting a brand new one would be exceptionally difficult. I think you would either need like an accessory unit or a fourth character to help form that torso. And I don't see either happening, because that would just upset a lot of people who are waiting for a Road Caesar. It's a very difficult one to do a modern engineering system for. Okay, this is a very long question. This better be good. If Kefka Palazzo kidnapped you, I'm dead. Let's just point this out. If Kefka came up, I'd just be dead. Like there's no question to that. But beyond that, okay. If Kefka kidnapped you, your D&D group, your VTuber friends, and your Metrocon family out of spite, and the crew's Hail Mary pass was to summon a trio of fictional characters in order to save you, which of these would be best shot at beating the nihilistic nincompoop and bring you all back home in one piece? Dr. Cortex, Dr. Robotnik, and Dr. Go. No. They have no chance against Kefka. David Xanatos, Lex Luthor, and Green Goblin. No chance. Harley Quinn, Charlie Morningstar, and Cyber Six. Charlie has some chance against Kefka. Harley, no. Cyber Six, no. Charlie, maybe. It depends on how powerful she really is when she's that demonic. The Knight from Hollow Knight, the Penitent One, Blasphemous, and Miriam, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Miriam, maybe. The rest, no. I admittedly, I've never played Blasphemous, so I have no idea there. Hades from Disney's Hercules, Beerus, and Kratos. Okay, you threw Beerus in, who's the god of destruction. He could literally one snap Kefka. That's the one I would pick. Like, if I could give Beerus enough junk food from Earth for him to go, okay, sure, I'll destroy this clown for you. Yeah, that's the one where like Kefka would not stand a chance. And you throw in Kratos too, which is fine. Samus Aran, Spock, and Space Ghost, none of them have a chance. Kim Possible, Ganondorf, Poison Ivy, none of them have a chance. I don't think, even before he became a god, Kefka is incredibly powerful. There's very few fictional characters who have a shot against him. Unless, you know, you yourself master so much magic that, you know, that becomes a detriment, you know, because you have to be able to beat him somehow. It is a video game. What type of music best suits Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, Grimlock, Shockwave, Starscream? Oh, it's a whole list. Optimus has to be like 80s dad rock. I think that one's a given. Megatron. I'm not. Jeez. Hang on a second. I'm getting messaged. Sorry about that. Let's see. Megatron, I'm not sure. Bumblebee's techno. Bumblebee's techno. Grimlock is like Shockwave is like EDM. He'd be electronica. Grimlock, probably dubstep, like big heavy noises or heavy metal. No, Grimlock would be heavy metal. Megatron would be dubstep. Starscream would be emo rock. He'd be one of those who acts really tough and like have a lot of bravado in person, but then when he gets home and he just turns on his player, it's all Linkin Park and Evanescence. Like he's absolutely that type. Thank you for reminding me of Fizzle. Who has a more tragic origin, Batman or Spider-Man? I mean, Batman watched his parents get murdered. You don't get much more tragic than that. The man... Because here's the difference. I absolutely hold to the idea that Bruce Wayne died in that alley the same night, and Batman is who he is, and Bruce Wayne is really just, a facade. I think that automatically makes him more tragic than Spider-Man. I mean, Spidey never, his parents were always, like, out of the picture. He lost one parental figure. He did not lose both of them. So, yeah, definitely Batman. If they make a Transformer fighting game, what's the oddball character you would put onto the roster? Like, Shuma Gorath in MVC2. The one you would put in, how about you make this like an unlockable? You would put in Star Upper to kind of throw back to the first fighting game for Transformers on the Game Boy Color. That'd be my left field pick, just to kind of make Star Upper as the character who only appears in Transformer fighting games. If we really want to go in with someone who'd be like super odd, but probably a lot of fun to play as in a fighting game, there I would pick something more along the lines of like Cybertron Crumple Zone, where he's throwing around Ransack for special attacks, and you got his like big gorilla arms to work with. That would be a lot of fun. If Megatron clones himself based on his personality like animated Starscream, what names would you give them and why? I'm not coming up with a whole roster of different Megatron names on the spot. That does qualify as one of those questions. It's going to take me a really long time to think of everything. Let's see. The only name off the top of my head is Megaplex, because that's the canonical name of a Megatron clone. Let's see. Transformers figures tend to lose accessories from previous owners, and their mechanical functions cease over time. Do you believe it's ethical for an outside party to recreate older parts for the sake of figure preservation? That is something where I think third party would absolutely have a purpose beyond just like making, like their own toys. There are a lot of Transformers out there with very easily broken parts that would be great to have replacements for. That would be fine like you do with like a lot of stuff. Like a lot of things like cars, they have reproduction parts. They're not the originals because the originals are too hard to find, too expensive. There's absolutely a market for a part that is functionally exactly the same. I would absolutely be down for that. Do you like the Dinobots more when they're mostly strictly on the Autobot side, or where they stand offish to both Autobot and Decepticon? Depends on the story. I think it's my most common answer. Depends on the story. You could do that with the Dinobots and tell a really good story where they're just kind of like a lone group who's on their own and just do whatever they feel like doing. And you could do a story where, like, yeah, they're just wholehearted Autobots. If you do make them good Autobots, I really do like you to have a counterpoint to them. The Constructicons stand as a counterpoint in G1 because They have a advantage with being able to combine, which offsets the raw power of the Dinobots. Also, their engineers they're engineers. They're much more intelligent than the Dinobots are. So you have a good balance between the two. You could do the same thing with the Predacons, I think, just like power versus power. If you want to do combining Dinobots, then you have to have Predaking as a counterpoint. I hate that, but yes, I'll agree with that. I think I prefer, again, yeah, like it just depends on what works best for the story you're telling. Can you describe the lore of the 13 Primes in 13 words? Nope. With recent releases like Ultra Magnus, Bumblebee, I'm sorry, it's me to come across like that. I did a whole video describing the lore of 13 Primes. There's no way for me to do it in 13. Like, I would have to sit here and just, like, toil over it, and that's not happening. With recent releases like Ultra Magnus, Bumblebee, and Optimus, do you think Studio Series 86 will be moving toward cartoon accuracy going forward, similar to what happened to Masterpiece? I think there's already a strive for cartoon accuracy in the 86 releases. You see that with figures like Jazz. 86 Jazz is trying very hard to be more cartoon accurate with no door wings. Ironhide is technically more cartoon accurate than any of his previous figures were. I think it's already there. I think it's already been baked in. They're certainly trying a lot harder on certain ones, but I don't think they're so far out there that we're looking at like a shift in aesthetic like what Masterpiece did. I think it's just a slightly different design approach, and there's going to be some that look more like old 86 figures and some that look more like new. A big thing to realize is a lot of those older 86 figures, they're taken from other lines and repurposed for Studio Series. Whereas, like, a lot of the ones you're describing are made specifically for Studio Series. So, like, that's probably where the difference is coming in. So, you're at the toy store, doing your job, but because practically no one is there at the moment, you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. But then all of a sudden, Hotshot breaks into your store. Looks like an innocent little, silly little guy. Goes, "It's Hotshot in time." And Hotshot's all over the store, grabbing almost everything in the place. Very fast smiling friend style. Come to the counter where you stand and responds with, "Open the cash register. I'm putting all my money in it. I'm buying all this." How would you respond? You're presuming that I don't just shoot him on sight. Because he did break into the store. It's a stand your ground state. I don't own a gun, so I don't know how I accomplished this. If he's buying everything, yeah, I'll open the register. I will have to put it out. He'll have to stand there while I scan it all through and make sure he's got enough money for everything. But if he's got enough money for everything, okay, fine. You drop $100,000 into that cash register, sir, and you walk out of this store with most of our inventory. That's perfectly fine by me. The money will be great for the therapy bills that will incur from this purchase. We know that Aligned as a collection of media in one continuity was a mess at best and a failure at worst, i.e. better to treat Prime as his own thing, separate from the High Moon games. But would you say that it was still a big success in the actual goal of creating a genuinely unified, you could ever say evergreen mythology for the franchise to draw from, considering the fact that even now we're using the same line of the 12 of the 13 Primes, Optimus, Megatron's backstories, etc.? I don't think we're using the backstories of Optimus and Megatron. It does change pretty frequently, and let's be honest, the Aligned is not the first time it was used. I think Aligned set up a good roadmap for like an ongoing continuity, but it has been ever evolving since then. So it's not like, I don't think it's like oh well, like we're still using it today. We kind of are, but the idea of the 13 Primes precedes Transformers Prime by years. The seeds of that started getting laid in Transformers Cybertron. So it's not definitive. Like, not everything that you're crediting came from the Aligned continuity. I ultimately see bits of the aligned content. I see like segments of the aligned continuity as successes in their own right. I see the High Moon games as a success. I see the Prime series as a success. But the concept and the execution of it overall I view as a failure because, as you said, like there's just too many people not following the same outline. And that is on Hasbro for not laying it out correctly. Given all the problems YouTube and its copyright system has given you, have you ever considered joining Nebula? No. Like, every time I hear of some alternative to YouTube, it's always the worst people who end up gravitating to it. I see the same thing with, like, Kick as a replacement for Twitch. It's not. It's not, because it's a hub of really horrible people. Like, I literally saw a Kick streamer at TwitchCon who literally tried to get someone killed by pushing them into a train that was going by. And he recorded the whole thing, and police got involved. Yeah, everything I've ever heard about any YouTube or Twitch alternative has made me go like, you know what, YouTube ain't great, but I'd rather be here. Also, at this stage, to try and like get everyone over to a different service and try and make the same money I'm making now off of YouTube, that ain't happening. You'd basically be asking me to start over, and I've been at this too long to start over anywhere else. If you could pick a Transformers character to gain a Kamen Rider belt to match their aesthetic, who would you choose? For me personally, it's Cosmos and the Forze driver and Magmatron with the O's driver. Could I give Bumblebee the Zabi Zector so he actually can have powers of a Bumblebee? That would actually be really cool now that I think about it. Now that I really think about it. If I'm choosing, like, yeah, you said a Kamen Rider belt, though. So, okay, so if I had to go with, like, a Kamen Rider belt, then, God, who would it be? Who would it be? I think the Insecticons with the Kabuto belts and Zectors in general would be terrifying, because all three of them could have a belt from Kabuto, and it would just be them. What's the most expensive item in the toy shop? Okay, so, literally the most expensive item is an arcade cabinet that we want $1,500 for. It's not like a high-end collector's shop, so like we don't have anything that's like terribly expensive. We have Funko Pops that range in the hundreds. We had a sealed Star Wars figure from the 80s that went for $650. And someone bought that, so it's no longer in the store, so that don't count. But we still have some Star Wars sets that are like around the $500 range. Given how Gnaw was branded as a Predacon in the Japanese G1 toy line, what would you think of a Sharkticon Gnaw figure done up as G1 Predacon color scheme palette branded as Predacon Gnaw as a potential generation like release of some? I think it's some, yeah, Japanese G1 timeline storylines are odd. I don't understand why they are Predacon unless Japanese G1 fiction ties the Predacons to the Quintessons a lot more strongly. I haven't looked into that, so I'm actually not sure off the top of my head. I don't necessarily want to see Gnaw aping another Combiner team. Like, I'm not sure that would actually work for me. Now, if you want to do something weird, like if you want to go like Combiner War with them and introduce him as like a sixth member that acted as like a weapon, like if you could actually turn him into like a mace weapon for Predaking, okay, that might actually be cool. Considering we just got Legacy United the Motormaster, what are some of the other War for Cybertron Legacy molds that would make good as stylized versions of the other Stunticons to you? There's another sit back and think about it question. That one gets very, very difficult. I might start pulling like Bumblebee movie studio series toys for that. Because especially like the RC, because there's no real good equivalent for the animated drag strip design. None that I'm coming up with off the top of my head. It'd be difficult. It'd be difficult. Now, some of them exist. Like we have a Lockdown, but I don't think that's a great Lockdown for the animated version. So I don't know. That one's negligible if you can get away with using it. Who else do we have? Like we've got Sideswipe molds that would work for animated breakdown, or hot rod mold, because that's actually the more correct choice for that character. Yeah, I think you just use like the 1-to-1 equivalents if you're going for it, but I don't think anyone's gonna match the aesthetic is the thing. Would Anime Lockdown's hip transformation scheme work on some of the female Transformers, or would it be too much? I don't remember Anime Lockdown's hip transformation scheme offhand. I mean, yeah, like he does have a very thin aesthetic that would technically work to give like a more feminine silhouette. I haven't messed with an animated Lockdown in a long time, so it's hard for me to remember exactly how that one went, but you might be onto something. If there were ever to be a reissue of GoBots, who would you want to be reissued? So, short list would be like the main characters, you know, so your Psykill, your Crasher, your Scooter, your Leader 1, etc. Even though I have a Scooter over there. I have a Super Psykill on my desk right now. Puzzler. It'd be great to get a Puzzler that is better fit together. Some of the rare Rock Lords would be nice. I'm trying to think like individual ones that I would love to see like again. You know, I more or less the ones I would want reissued to be some like the super rare ones. Like I can't remember what they were called, but like in Europe they had their version of Duocons. I actually do have one. It's a very expensive GoBot. It's actually very, very cool. And there are some of those that came out in Europe only, and then there's like one that only came out in Japan. So like there's some really rare ones. I would love for those to be done again. What is your stance on magic being in the world of Transformers? Second magic question. Yeah, there's no robots that are casting spells. No, like, I don't remember any, like, Transformers themselves actually participating in anything magical. Or, like, casting spells of any kind. I don't mind the idea. You know, because we're in a science fiction universe in Transformers, you can absolutely get away with magic existing. But you'd have to figure out some other unique way of introducing it so it stood out. You know, and posed a threat to either Autobot or Decepticon, depending who is using it. It would work. I think it would work. In a very, like, Thundercats or He-Man kind of way, because those are both fictional universes that mixed sorcery and sword. You could, and technology. You could get away with it. It's just a tricky thing to do. Why do you think Hasbro has turned away from the Fallen original characterization and instead embraced Megatronus Prime? Funny you ask that, as we've just gotten a DreamWorks-inspired Fallen announced as a toy. I think Megatronus became a thing for a while to separate him from the Fallen from Revenge of the Fallen. Just so those depictions had a little bit more space between them. I have seen now of course this is a very timely question, because now we have seen Hasbro go back to the Fallen, though even then they make sure that the name Megatronus is in there somewhere. But no, we're seeing a return of like a traditional Fallen now, which is nice. When Legacy Road Rocket was repainted into an homage to the canceled G2 Laser Cycle Jazz figure, it was renamed Laser Cycle to make it separate character from Jazz. If they took the Star Raider Road Pig figure and repainted it into a homage to the canceled G2 Laser Cycle Soundwave figure and also made it a new character, what should they name it? I would be super cheeky with this. I would be super cheeky with this and call it Laser Wave, which is G1 Shockwave's name in Japan. And then if you import it into, if you send it to Japan, you have to call it Shockwave. That's the funniest thing you could do with it, and it would work. It would absolutely work. What types of food would you make the Cybertron, Optimus Prime, Megatron for their alt modes? Food. What would the Cybertron, Optimus Prime, and Megatron for their almost. So specifically from Transformers Cybertron, Optimus, and Megatron, what food would they transform into? Oh my god. Oh my god. I mean, I suppose Prime would be a burger, like a big stack burger, and like so instead of like Leo Breaker like becoming an arm for his combined mode, instead he becomes a different topping. So you just keep adding to the burger. Megatron, I'm not sure. I'm not sure for Megatron. Maybe a hot dog. There's an unspoken rivalry and feud between the hamburger and the hot dog, and I feel like Transformers needs to represent that better. I really do. What are the chances of Toxitron appearing in a show or movie? Now, in a movie, absolutely not. There's way too many ways of doing evil Optimus Primes for them to go to Toxitron. Where you might see it is in a show. I could absolutely see them doing it in a cartoon, especially a CGI cartoon where they need to reuse models to come up with new characters and villains. You would see him appearing in something like Earthspark as more akin to like Bizarro in Superman. You know, where it is this evil duplicate who is kind of like degraded and like, you know, not, you know, and kind of insane. And Toxitron is inspired by Bizarro, so that would, you know, that's where I'm drawing that comparison. So you do have a you have an avenue for a show. I don't think you're going to see it in a movie though. Do you think we will get a new Six Shot? So we did. If so, what do you think would be the most appropriate way to get one in terms of timing, release method, necessary size class? So for a Six Shot, we just did mention that if we get an Amalgamus, RID Megatron or Six Shot are your good options for them. So beyond that, if we wanted to talk about what size class and all that, Commander minimum. He would at least have to be a commander to get that much engineering and tooling into him in order to make everything work correctly. I don't think you can get away with it at the leader class price point anymore like you could in Titan's Return. Depending on how big he ends up being, I might even suggest Titan if Star Convoy comes out and he's like a decent size. Like, we will have to see how that one turns out. But right now, I think Commander is your best bet for a Six Shot. What are your thoughts on the shutdown of Shapeways? Is there any 3D printing site alternative that can replace it? Hang on. I skipped one. We'll go back to you, Hayden. Don't worry. I think at this point 3D printing has become such a common thing, and like everyone knows somebody with a 3D printer. I own 4 3D printers. You know? I think with all of that, I think Shapeways just isn't relevant anymore. I don't think you need to service 3D printing things for you anymore when most people can just buy an STL file off of Etsy or Thingiverse, or download off of Thingiverse and just have a friend print it or print it themselves. It's so accessible these days. Keep in mind, Shapeways started up when 3D printing was an absolute luxury. It was a brand new thing, and it just wasn't an in-house, in-home thing yet. Now it's very common. Now it's much more common. So yeah, I don't see Shapeways. I think that's just the nature of the beast. The Shapeways going away, and I don't think you need a replacement. I don't think you need a replacement at this point. Okay, now Hayden, what do you think a Commander class Onslaught would need to include in order to make it worth the Commander price point? Another Stunticon. I feel like he would have to come with one of the other Stunticons, and I think that's the easiest solution, honestly. And you already called me out in the comments. I said Stunticon, I meant Combaticon. It's very late. I always record these late at night when it's nice and quiet. I'm not going to be interrupted, even though I was getting messaged earlier. For Onslaught, I think your best, man. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. I want to see how the aerial bots are done first. and what their idea behind that is. Yeah, because like literally the only way I could think of it right now would be as if, yeah, if you threw in like blast off as part of the deal, and the two, and he like kind of acted as like the shuttle carrier truck as well as well as just being an independent toy. Yeah, that's difficult. Yeah, that's tricky. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure what you do to bulk it out. I'm sure they figured out something. Like maybe like I think your best bet would maybe be like to take the weaponizer approach, and to have a character who's designed as a weaponizer. Robot mode, a lot of weapon. Like a big, like one vehicle mode, but breaks down instead of into individual like vague parts you can use for armoring up other toys. Instead, he becomes the armor for Bruticus. I think that'd be your best way of going about that. After Hasbro runs out of deluxe mini-bots to do in Generations, do you think we'll get deluxe Micromasters or Spy Changers? Spy Changers is possible, except for the fact that they would all transform very much the same. I think you'd have to completely reinvent them in order to make them interesting. Because even if they, even if they did a modern Spy Changer mold, and like did like unique ones, they all transform the exact same way, and they all look the same in robot mode, which is going to make variety very difficult. Micromasters, maybe not. I think once they run out of deluxe mini bots to do, they'll probably move on to throttle bots next. I think that's the next one, and then potentially another set of battle chargers. There's always other places to go. I don't think we're going to get deluxe Micromasters at any point. I think the next phase beyond all those small sizes in G1, maybe multi-pack mini-cons. It gets hard after that. What Autobot who hasn't been a wrecker yet of your choosing would make an interesting wrecker? Can I come up with someone who has not been a wrecker at some point? That would be the more difficult one. I'm trying to think of someone who's like really gung ho who would work really well for it. Like Rodimus would be a wrecker, for how like headstrong he is. But he technically was a wrecker if we're including the 3H era of BotCon. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think and nothing's coming up. I hate that. My brain's starting to go into other generations. Like, who's a good one? Who's a good one? Who's a good one? It's nothing. It's nothing. Nothing's coming up. Headcanon to go with Roadbuster and Whirl. They were wreckers. Roadbuster and Whirl were wreckers. Yeah, I don't know offhand. Like I'm looking at my shelves right now. I'm just trying to come up with anyone. Just like unfortunately I'm blanking here. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. I wish I had any answer for you. Which version of Voltron, Go Lion, or Legendary Defender would make a better collaboration? It has to be the original. It has to be Go Lion. It has to be the original because that's the one everyone's going to want. If you don't do the 80s version of Voltron to go into Transformers, a famous 80s line, I feel like you just upset a lot of people. So it's got to be the original. And I mean Go Lion, not the Gladiator, not the vehicle. The vehicle one is obscure. No one remembers the Gladiator. Do you have any potential woes or concerns for how TF Age of the Primes will handle Solus Prime? We have been in the renaissance for female Transformers as of late, but one can't help but wonder how Hashtag will handle the wielder of the Forge. I think because of her position like that, they are actually in a position where they could make her a better figure, a better female Transformer toy without having to be like feminine design, hourglass figure, high heels, that kind of thing. All of my vehicle modes hanging off my back. I think she has a better chance of being a good figure because they can kind of just do whatever they want, you know? So, yeah, I'm actually hopeful for that. You know, I don't think they would do a full set of 13 if they weren't set to make all of them good on some level, and Solus included. Is it a bad thing if I think that Micron Densetsu, the original Japanese version of Armada, is genuinely fantastic and deserves so much better than being associated with the unfinished abomination of an English dub that is Armada? Not at all. Not at all. Everyone's free to like their own thing. I can't tell you you're wrong. I can disagree with you, but honestly, if you like it, good. Cool. And I do know that Micron Densetsu was far better handled than Armada was. Less cringy dialogue, a lot more consistent dialogue. The finished animation that the US didn't get. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to like that version above Armada and to genuinely think that it is good. Because as we've described in the past, like even Armada does have good elements to it. Do you think that Legacy United Soundwave should have had a toy-based head sculpt since he came with Buzzsaw and a toy-based Rumble Frenzy? That way, when they make a Sound Blaster out of the mold, he can have a toy tooling / deco, or tune deco, Purple Jets, etc. Here's the thing. The whole point of Legacy United Soundwave isn't to create a new iteration of Soundwave or to give us a new take on the character that we haven't gotten at retail before. It's to reissue the Netflix toy that everybody was after. No, if you want to talk about something like this, what you're waiting for is an 86 Soundwave that's a completely new mold and does not have any of the leftover greeble of the Siege design, and doesn't have any of the leftover bits from the Siege's vehicle mode. That's what you're looking for. Yeah, I think Legacy United Soundwave is mostly just a stopgap, just so people have a Soundwave for now, and then give it 2 or 3 years, we'll see, you know, an 86 Soundwave who looks way more like what we expect, and that's when you can get into your toy-based head sculpts, your Sound Blasters, etc. How would you feel about a Super Sentai series with a sole hero who can summon 4 monsters that they defeat prior to the beginning of the series? You're talking about a Kamen Rider that has a summoning gimmick. That is not Super Sentai. You can't do Super Sentai with a solo hero. That's not the point of the franchise. The point of the franchise is teamwork. It would be different, but I don't think I think it's absolutely the wrong ballpark. You're coming up with a completely new franchise. You're not coming up with a Super Sentai concept, unfortunately. With Iron Maiden having a private jet in the form of Flight 666, they're just numbers, don't worry. Do you think that if Hasbro were to do a collab, would it be wise to see a heavily modified version of Octane to make look like Eddie for the fans? Would that work? Okay, I don't know if you're the same person who keeps asking for music-based Transformers. I just know that I've had a lot of questions lately about music-based Transformers. If you are the same person, I'm gonna ask you to please stop, as I have made it clear this is not my field of expertise. I am not that... I have songs that I like, I have a few musicians I like. I'm not really into bands and musicians as a whole, so I really have no frame of reference or knowledge for these ideas. So, I'm gonna ask, like, can we please move on from the music and band-based Transformers? It's not an idea. It's not a concept I have any ideas for, and I have no interest in talking about it. I apologize. It's your thing. It's not my thing, though. You know, and I just hate to keep giving unsatisfactory non-answers because I really have no answer for you. So I do apologize. You've mentioned a few times of figures you regret selling and sort of have an urge to reacquire, but has there ever been a figure you were just so glad to get rid of that you thought never crossed your mind since? The truth is, it very much is out of sight, out of mind once I've sold off most of my stuff. Pretty much anything, like, I've gone through my old folders full of, like, old eBay photos, and I'm just, like, surprised. I'm shocked at how many toys I've sold off over the years. there's always things like, I think the only time I have that experience is when I've accidentally double bought something and I successfully get my money back for it, So like right now I'm sitting on a Legacy Cybertron hotshot that I got by mistake. That was actually the store's mistake, not mine, so I'm in the clear a little bit on that one. But I recently got in the 86 Transformers 1 Megatron. I forgot that I pre-ordered it 2 places. So, that's a thing. That's absolutely a thing. I'm most of when I'm happy to get rid of something, it's because I'm trying to make up for a screw up I did. That's pretty much the only time. Why are the Viacons from TF Prime referred to as Steve by the fandom? It's like a Steve from Accounting joke, which I don't even know the origin of that one outside of like an Eddie Izzard routine. I don't really know. I don't really know. I think just the fandom, it's just one of those things that someone joked about, everyone latched onto it, and now everyone's just in on the joke. Every Viacon is Steve. Do you think we'll ever get a good Kamen Rider game again? I mean, eventually. Law of averages and all that. How many hurricanes have you been through, anyway? I'm a Floridian. I can't count that many. Keep in mind, a lot of them were when I was still a little kid and living in Central Florida, where hurricanes weren't as much of a threat to us. I can't even... we never boarded up when we lived in... we never boarded up when we lived in the middle of the state. Because, hurricanes, once they hit land, they weaken tremendously. By the time they get to us, they're like a Cat 1. It's only here when I've been, like, coastal, when I've really dealt with, like, a lot. There's hurricanes we don't even board up for. Cat 1s you don't board up for. Major ones, maybe only a handful, because I am in a weird area that's hard for a hurricane to curve around and hit. I have no way of giving you an exact number, but it has been a lot. Who do you like better as Optimus' second in command? Jazz, Ironhide, Bumblebee, Elita 1, or some other Autobot? I am with you in that I do like this recent push for Elita being second in command. If you follow G1 fiction, if she is the leader on Cybertron in Prime's absence, that does mean she probably was second in command before we were aware of her. So, yeah, I do like this current push to enhance her character and make her something a lot bigger. I like the idea of her being second in command because, she kind of suits the role. Let's see. Minus the fact that we have Transformers 1 Sentinel Prime coming in Studio Series and we have 1 in the main line, what do you think the odds are of us, an animated Sentinel Prime in the future, is in the Age of the Primes line? So, Sentinel Prime is not one of the 13, and I don't think you're going to see anyone named Prime in the Age of the Primes toy line, or whatever trilogy it ends up being, that also has Prime in their name. I don't think you're going to see Sentinel Prime for the next 3 years because he's not one of the 13 Primes, and to release him as part of that, as in the same series as all the official Primes, I think that's just going to create confusion. There's going to be 13 across the 3 years. We're probably going to get Age of the Primes. There's going to be 13 characters with the name Prime, or at least that are described as Primes. Sentinel is not going to be one of them. Have you watched Doctor Who, and what is your favorite episode? If not, what enemy design do you like the most? I am a sucker for a Dalek, I will admit. I like how threatening they can be, despite not really having despite looking like a trash can. I don't remember. I have not followed Doctor Who in years. I fell off during the Capaldi era. And everything before that is a little bit fuzzy. So, I watched, the David Tennant run. I watched the Matt Smith run. I can't remember a specific episode where I want to, yeah, that's my favorite. Because it has just been a really long time. You'll forgive me if I don't have something in mind for that. Do you think the Stu Series Constructicons will come with their little horns from Starscream's coronation? Considering Scrapper and Bone Crusher did not have them, no. If they were going to come with their horns, they would have seen those. Funny idea, though. We'll hold out hope for that when the Commander is announced. When we get to see what's in the Commander box, then we'll talk. Because that might actually have potential. Given that Nexus Prime's main core will be a repaint retool of a Commander class, Onslaught, how will you see Hasbro releasing him? Gen Selects box, Titan for 2026. So to do Nexus Prime, yeah, you need the Onslaught. I don't know if a slot's going to be open because they're really set on doing like the classic G1 combiners. I think during the last year of Age of the Primes, I think, or whatever they call the third leg of this, whatever they call this whole trilogy, I think it's going to be a Gen Selects, or it's going to be an online exclusive. It's going to be like an Amazon exclusive to get him, because I don't think he's going to have enough mainline appeal. Honestly, either that entire wave is going to be like a Walmart exclusive run, or it's going to be just one box set, here's your Nexus Prime. One or the other. If we got an updated version of Combiner Wars Viper in the G.I. Joe crossover line, what size scale do you think he would be best as? I don't think you're going to see something like that in a G.I. Joe crossover line, because the best size is to be the correct size for a G.I. Joe vehicle. It should be big enough for a 3 3/4 inch figure to sit inside, which would be absolutely enormous. You'd basically be making a Titan class crossover figure, and they're not going to do that. So, unfortunately, no, I don't see that actually happening, especially because Viper is such a low run character. It's like he's a non-character in Transformers. So, no, I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see that. I don't think we're gonna see that. If they do, if they do like a Cobra Rattler as a jet, it's gonna be like a Starscream or a Thundercracker. It's gonna be a main character. It's not gonna be some offshoot that they did just for the excuse of a repaint. Since the negative syndicates are based off of Super Sentai mech, if Bo Kendrick gets a 20-year later project, what mecha would you like to see referenced in a monster? I don't know what a negative syndicate is. Keep in mind, I have not really followed Super Sentai closely for like a decade. It's been a long time. Q Ranger is the last series I watched all the way through. None of the others really caught my interest. I have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to a negative syndicate. But if Bo Kendrick gets a 20-year later, yeah, like that'll be exciting. So I have an idea for how we could potentially get a modern Lyle Kaiser with core class going away. In theory, that should give Hasbro less budgetary restraints, so we could have pack-in Minicons, Breastmasters, Power Masters, Brain Masters, etc. I'm going to stop this question right there. That's not how toy budgeting works. Just because they stop producing one thing does not mean other toy lines get more budget. Everything, every size class and every line has its own fixed budget. Just because they're not doing core class does not mean, oh, we have the money to add more into Deluxes and Voyagers now. That's not how the industry works. So, like right off the bat, you are going off of a misconception. So, Lyle Kaiser is still exceptionally difficult because of the torso has to be two characters combining into that. Like all four are, the other four are very distinct from each other, so retooling is not as doable. Maybe on the arms, and that's about it. Guy Hawk and Hellbat would be the only two you could get away with that with. And then, yeah, the breast force gimmick, that one is also very difficult with modern budgeting. There's a lot more reasons than you're considering. And no, core going away does not make that possible. I've long held a theory that Hasbro Takara will never release a definitive perfect version of a character. There's always going to be one flaw, one missing paint app, one missing point of articulation, something that stops him from being perfect. You're right. You're absolutely right. Because if they released a perfect version of a character, why would you buy the next iteration of that character? So you could look at Masterpiece Megatron 2.0 and call that perfect because it looks so good in robot mode and still transforms into a gun you can hold in one hand. But he is an exceptionally complicated figure, so to the point where he's not as fun to transform. So that leaves them room to potentially do another one down the line where he's a lot more intuitive in design. You have, like, the recent one for me is like the current Galvatron mold, where we've had him in Kingdom and he was okay, but they added battle damage to him that they knew fans didn't want. Then Legacy came out, and then they went, oh, we removed the battle damage this time. Okay, so you've already given us a minor improvement over the previous one. Thank you very much. Had to buy it again. And now we're getting the 86 version with movie-accurate colors. I'm like, okay, well, now you want me to buy it a third time because you've upgraded it and made it just a little bit more perfect. Even Studio Series 86 Prime, which is what I think is to be the best mainline G1 Optimus Prime we've ever had, even that is not a perfect toy. There are still features missing. There are still other things that other collectors would want that toy is lacking. There is never going to be a perfect definitive version of any single character because that would just defeat the point of them releasing future versions of that character. Now that said, as budgets get tighter and more corners are cut, I do think you will have a best version of every character, and I think we're seeing a lot of those now. I don't think, I think 5 years from now, you might not get an Ironhide that's as good as the 86 version. So we will see, but you are right. You are right. They will not release a perfect version. How would you feel they made a Monster Hunter Transformer, Megatron transforms into, hang on. Betelgeuse. I will admit, I don't know what a Betelgeuse is. I have not played much of Wild. Not World. Obviously, I haven't played much of Wild. The demo's just out, and I don't have a PlayStation for it. I have not played much of Rise. I have not played much of World. So there's a lot of monsters I'm not up on lately. The heavy bowgun makes sense. Gives them an excuse to have some kind of arm cannon-esque weapon. Gun lance would work too. I'm trying to think of a monster that would actually work for Megatron. See, like, I feel like if you're going to make a Rathalos into Optimus Prime, I kind of feel like you need to have, like, a Zinogre for Megatron. Just like more, like, big deal franchise monsters. Right? But that's just like a shot in the dark. I'm genuinely, like, stumped on which one you'd use for Megatron. Do you like your keychain? So, I will admit, I do like the keychain. Thank you very much. It is a little bit heavy for my keys on my car. But I keep it around. I keep it around. I want to have some way of showing that off and keeping it around a little bit more often. But like, it's living here on the desk for now, like up here on the top shelf, right where I can see it. Since Monster Hunter announced crossovers with both Transformers and Digimon at almost the same time, Rathalos Prime versus Rathalos Greymon, who wins? So here's the thing. Digimon are ridiculously powerful. So I would absolutely expect Rathalos Greymon to stomp Rathalos Prime. Okay, and so I think Greymon wins that. This is the second time a question of mine got skipped because YouTube is being dumb. It's a bug. When you remove a comment rather than just moving on to the next person in line, it skips a bunch of people. Okay, I apologize for that. Every now and then, someone asks something really repugnant, and I have to delete the comment. I end up deleting the comment on the spot to make a point. I will not do that from now on, because if it's screwing things up and skipping people, then that's not great. So we'll just delete them later. We will scold them in the moment, delete them later. Would Bulma and Wheeljack get along? The mad scientist, probably. Probably. I'm sure Wheeljack would be fascinated by capsule technology. How did you get an entire plane inside that capsule that fit in your pocket? I'm sure he would love to know how that works. I'm trying to think of where personalities would clash. I don't think they would. I don't really think they would. What Armada Minicon team design would you like to see a full-size upgrade of? Core, Deluxe, maybe bigger. Air Military was always one of my favorites. I think those would be great to get larger, like more solid versions of. The Land Military team would be great as well. You know, that would be great. Honestly, Street Action. They're the main minicon set in Armada. I would love to see a version where, you know, you could actually not only be crazy enough to actually have transforming bicycles and skateboards, but also you could also work in actual articulation and functionality at larger price points. Be very weird, but I think it'd be fun. Favorite season of either Power Rangers or Super Sentai? For Super Sentai, it's Bokenger. I love the look of the costumes. I really like the mech. I like the variety of villains rather than just having like one main villain through the whole series. And I like the adventure motif. I love like the adventure and the treasure hunting motifs. For Power Rangers, OG Season 1, Power Rangers in Space, Time Force, and RPM. No particular order for those. No particular order for those. Those are just the ones that stand out the most in my brain. Have you ever sold or gotten rid of a figure you thought that was kind of meh, but later realized you actually liked it and rebought it? That was Siege Ultra Magnus for me. So, I bought that toy originally, didn't really like how it worked, didn't really like the feel of it, sold it off. The Kingdom version came out. I managed to find it on cheap clearance because it's shelf warmed. Bought it, still liked it a little bit better, but still no. Like, it still didn't beat Combiner War Ultra Magnus for me. If I'm being real here, I don't even think Studio Series 1 beats it for me. The only time I really liked it is when it was retooled into Nexus Prime. That's the version that finally stuck with me, and I went, okay, now I like this toy. And frankly, this is a Siege Optimus retool. I might have been describing... No. I'm on the right track here. I'm losing track of, like, all the releases of that toy. But point being, yeah, that took a long time for me to warm up to that mold. And it had to be the right style. It had to be the right character. What is the current count of Glyos figures now? I have none. I mean, I have Glyos figures, but I have no idea what the count is. I never counted them up in the first place. To be honest with you, I'm kind of falling out of love with Glyos. It's just not the same that it used to be, and it doesn't really, like, catch my interest, because a lot of the things I really loved don't happen anymore. So it's just not as interesting of a toy line to me anymore, unfortunately. So the new toy line will feature the 13, but we just got the new Cybertron Vector Prime. So do you think we'll get another version of the character, or do you just think that is count the figure as a 13? I think the Cybertron Vector Prime we got is our first step into the 13. I don't think they're going to do another one. If they do, they might do a repaint of that one into the... what was the book? The Covenant of Primus version? from basically like the universe guidebook they released, where I think he had more golden colors to him. I would expect a repaint of him in Age of the Primes in that kind of aesthetic. But for now, I think that Vector stands as the first of the 13, just released one line early, just so they don't inundate the line completely with them. Have you ever seen the anime That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime? And if so, what anime would you want it to cross over with the most? For me, it's Dr. Stone. I've seen a little bit of Dr. Stone. I do like that one. I have not seen Reincarnated as a Slime, so unfortunately I have no answer for that one. Anime in general, like modern anime in general, I have seen extraordinarily little of. So I will warn people right now, if you ask me an anime question, it better be 90s and 2000s animes, because I will not know anything beyond that. Since Titan class figures are so expensive, what would be cheaper alternatives to desirable Titans like Omega Supreme, Trypticon, Fort Max, etc.? I had an idea for Voyager leader class versions of these characters with a play pattern briefly seen in Earthrise Ironworks Air Raid, except for Scorponok and Metroplex and what have you, along with like 2 Micromaster 2 back. Basically, you're thinking about like making a small size line for Titans so they can be like Voyagers and leaders. I've had that idea. I've spoken about that idea in this channel. So yeah, we hit the same wavelength on that one. The truth is, there really isn't a cheaper alternative to desirable Titans other than to just reimagine the line as like much smaller $150 figures, and that wouldn't be satisfying. You know, the truth is, like, they just have to be expensive because they're supposed to be big. Now, with Star Convoy coming up, we're going to see a reinvention. I actually do expect that one to be cheaper because I expect it to be considerably smaller. So we'll see how that goes. Theseus Gestalt. How many components of a 5-6 member combiner team can we replace before we consider a different combiner? I would say you would have to replace all the limbs. I think if you've even got like 2 of the same team members together, they would dominate the transformation, even if you, especially if it was like the leader. Like I think as long as you have that core character in there, you know, like if Motormaster is your core, that's Menasor no matter who's combined with it. That's how I tend to think about it. Because you are still seeing that character, you are still hearing that character's voice, their personality. Yeah, I think that's the go-to. I think it's just like there is no combiner of Theseus. It's just if that's the core, that's who it is. Am I wrong to say that, before anyone comments on this, I know there is an exception with Betatron for the retool of like the first release of Scattershot. I do know that. Yeah, I do know. Yeah. Like that was a weird situation. That was just a weird situation. Am I wrong to say that the Movieverse characters will not be in the Generations line, as they are only going to be in Studio Series? Very likely. Very likely that we're not going to see them in Legacy, because there really isn't any reason to muddy the waters by like taking movie characters and like mixing them in with G1 style characters. There really isn't a point to that when you still have Studio Series. Even if you wanted to like Generationify them, you could still put them out as like concept series characters that just look more Generations in style. What do you think Hasbro would do to celebrate Beast War's 30th anniversary in 2026? Polar Claw was teased at New York Comic Con. Was Polar Claw teased? I heard nothing about Polar Claw getting teased. All outside of the fact that they admitted that people still asked them for Polar Claw because he was like on the poster for Kingdom and never came out. Beyond that, yeah, no, beyond that, I don't know what we'll really get to celebrate the 30th anniversary, honestly, because Kingdom is not that old. You know, at the most, I think the 30th anniversary might herald in Transmetals, or at least, you know, Transmetal Optimus and Megatron again. That might be the most we get. Maybe some Kingdom reissues with better paint jobs. I'm not expecting anything tremendous, though. Who is the most terrifying Transformer in any universe, in your opinion? All the Halloween questions. Still goes to Sunder. I mean, Unicron is frightening, of course. But that's in, like, scale. It's almost like trying to perceive a hurricane. I think it's almost too big to be scared of. I'd still go with Sunder. Sunder's terrifying. What origin story is better, in your opinion, in the Transformers being creations of the Quintessons or them being created by Primus? So, I was always big on the Quintesson origin story, but the more that we've adapted the Primus creation, the more I enjoy that. Like, I like adding the 13 as part of the mythos. I like how much that, like, adds to things. I like Unicron being involved in the origin as well because of that. Why did the 86 movie bomb? Because, well, frankly, it wasn't the kind of movie that normal moviegoers would go to. It was just a movie for kids. And yeah, Transformers was huge at the time, but kids don't really push movies the way you would think. At least not at the time. Oh, keep in mind, a lot of 80s movies, a lot of 80s cartoons had, like, theatrical movie releases. Like, I think, like, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Care Bears, and all of them were just kind of the same schlock. It was just kind of like the cartoon, an episode of the cartoon that went, 90 minutes and had somewhat better animation. So a lot of them didn't do well compared to most movies. And it's not necessarily that it bombed, but, like, the movie wasn't that expensive to make in the first place. I don't have exact numbers in hand, but, like, it's a different scale we're talking about back then. What's your opinion on them potentially making an Ultra Magnus out of the Gamer Edition Optimus Prime mold if they make a Gamer Edition version? Fine. Do you want to do the white Ultra Magnus? Because I kind of missed that color scheme. I'd like to see that again. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I mean, it'd be fine for them to try it, just because why not? But really, like, the Ultra Magnus would be the Fall of Cybertron version, not the War for Cybertron that's currently out. So we'll see. What is your favorite joke? I don't have like a setup punchline type joke. I like off the cuff humor. I like very spur of the moment improv style stuff. So unfortunately, I don't have like a knock knock. I don't have one of those. Why didn't Hasbro do a collaborative figure that was slightly remolded Volkswagen Beetle into Herbie from the Love Bug? Because Herbie is a pretty old character at this point. There is a more modern movie, but it's not exactly something that it aspires to, everyone's gonna want a toy of Herbie. It's not like a cultural zeitgeist type design, right? It's just the other famous Volkswagen Beetle character. That's pretty much it. There's a novel idea there, but honestly, I think it's just because they don't think there's enough interest in it. And honestly, I kind of think the same. Since we have the Legacy line, why didn't Hasbro I'm going to point this out too, because I have seen this Godzilla. I've seen CDR post before. Try, please, to post your questions first and your comments all in the same post. Because if I see your comment first and then I see a question, I might confuse it and think you're trying to answer two questions. So just try to simplify it for me. If you come up with a question afterwards, or if you come up with a comment later, edit feature. Since we have the Legacy line, why Hasbro... Since we have the Legacy line, why Hasbro don't put stuff from the other continuities aside from G1 in the new cartoons? It will give synergy. because they don't really see the cartoons as an extension of the Generations line. They see it as its own thing with its own direction and its own audience. I think Hasbro is long overdue to just start using Generations as the basis for the current cartoons and eliminate the kids line altogether, because frankly, they don't sell. It doesn't seem like they sell anyway. They just always have this really poor reception, and all the cheap toys give the show subsequently a poor, just a poor take. So, I don't think they don't want synergy. They want to separate the brands into all these little groups so that they can target specific demographics with each set, which I don't think is working out anymore. So we'll see. We'll see if they change the idea. Do you think Combiner War Ultra Magnus was designed for Thrilling 30, or is it just me thinking that because of his inaccurate alt mode and the IDW robot mode? I don't think it was designed for Thrilling 30. I think it just happened to be the Ultra Magnus design that people knew at the time, so that's what they did. The vehicle mode's inaccurate, but that's partially because they were going to pre-tool it into Power Master Optimus Prime, or retool it into Power Master Prime. But also, like Ultra Magnus in IDW doesn't transform a lot, so they don't have a whole lot to go. They don't have a lot to go on there. I don't think it was designed for Thrilling 30. I think it was just like, Ultra Magnus was due for a new toy. That was the design people knew at the time. Why, Sentinel? Why? Spoilers. Go buy the digital release. Do you think Hasbro or other licensed partners will increase their usage, HasLabs or Kickstarter methods to produce more Transformers content? Example, omnibus Transformers of Transformers comics, or even Generation Select repaints of toys. I don't think you're going to see like Kickstarters for just like Generations repaints. There's no reason for Hasbro or anyone else to do that at all. You are seeing it a little bit more, admittedly, because we just had the trading cards that we talked about a few times on this channel. That was successfully kickstarted. You also had a Kickstarter for a Transformers chess set, which we did a whole video of it failing spectacularly because, frankly, it was a very poorly designed set. So, based on, like every time one of these succeeds, you're going to potentially see more going like, we could use that to get our idea off the ground. But I don't think Hasbro is going to extend it beyond just like the big HasLab toys and licensees. I have no idea. It depends on what they come up with. Do you feel that Megatron is or will be slowly phased out, having a major role in the franchise given the controversy surrounding Zalt mode? No. Absolutely not. You are going to see Megatron as the main villain in Transformers forever. You are never going to see the franchise go without him. He makes too much money. Do you currently collect any non-Transformers import figures like SH Figuarts, Monster Arts, Figma, Mafex, etc.? Honestly, like a lot of that stuff with import costs have gotten way too expensive for me to do. I did get some Diaclone, and I did enjoy that Diaclone. I maybe went a little overboard. But as far as like other imports, not really. Like because Common Riders they've been doing lately really haven't caught my interest. I haven't really even been buying Common Rider stuff lately. So there's nothing that's being collected as an import anymore. We're keeping it domestic, mostly for just cost reasons. Do you like Universe 2003? I think it's an interesting idea of just coming up with like wild repaint ideas for toys that never got repainted. I like it in pockets. I think there are a lot of meh kind of ideas and a lot of weird mold choices, but I do like it as a concept. And there are designs and characters and paint jobs in there, yes, that I do actually really like. Why do you think we don't get more Spinosaur Transformers? Because the concept, like it's because Spinosaur is constantly changing. Like Jurassic Park depicted the Spinosaur as basically a T-Rex with a longer mouth and a fin. But since then, we're kind of getting new fossil evidence that they might have been swimmers or belly crawlers. So the idea of in the design and like what a Spinosaur actually looks like has been constantly changing. So it's hard to produce, and and this is all in the last few years. So getting getting a Spinosaur out there, it's very difficult right now because what is like a realistic one is always so different. I wish we would get more Scorn. I would love to get another Scorn. Is Transformers 2 truly death? I do not think it is death. I fear that it will be dead because it just does not make enough money. I'm a small channel that just hit 335 subs on YouTube. I'm thinking about starting a Patreon. I know it's hard to get a young YouTube channel off the ground when it's not making any money. My suggestion at the moment would be hold off on that. Focus on your content. Focus on cleaning it up. Focus on getting a bigger subscriber count, a more consistent audience before you go the Patreon route. Because I will admit, my Patreon is too much for me a lot of the times. And I really need to be able to focus on it more than I am. But life and this channel keeps me so busy that, like, unfortunately that doesn't happen. So even I struggle with that. So, like, for you, like, you don't have the numbers yet. Just keep plugging away, keep working at it, refine your craft, hone your production, and then revisit that as a concept when you feel comfortable in what you're doing and when you have a large enough audience who would be receptive to that. I don't think you're quite there yet. Just keep at it. Cringiest Nostalgia Critic video. I have not watched the Nostalgia Critic in, probably like a good 6-7 years. When a guy refuses to hire you, even though you have more audience than the other guys that they were hiring, you kind of take it personally. I was a fan of his when he was producing his worst stuff, which is like, yeah, he did that one thing where, like, when he retired the Nostalgia Critic character and he tried to do, like, those weird, like, sketch-based videos, or, like, based on movies. I thought those were terrible. Cringe. And you're going into, like, the stuff that he attempted and cut, like Emo Jones and Melvin's brother, the Joker. That stuff was cringe. Yeah, specific Nostalgia Critic episodes, though, it's been too long. It's been too long. I can't give you one. Let's see, what would you say to... I'm sorry, my voice is getting really dry. My throat's getting really dry and I'm running low in water. What would you say to a Transformers Kamen Rider crossover, Halloween crossover with Kiga, remodeled from Kiva, remodeled from Mind White mold, Garura Bashandaga as Bear Master... This is getting hard to parse. I mean, you've got a decent idea because, they're two, it's a bat-based Kamen Rider with a bat-based Transformer. I don't know how you would incorporate the ARMS monsters into that, though, outside of just giving him different accessories. If this gets deleted because it can't appear on screen, fine, but I want to say I'm a queer person of color, too. I don't like Krakoa. Self-segregation is not a fantasy for me. I don't respond to comments. I will respond to this. You're fine. There's no reason this comment can't stay up. I absolutely hate Krakoa. And the whole concept of Krakoa, because it flies in the face of everything X-Men represented and everything X-Men ever fought for. I think it's basically just Charles Xavier giving up and going, you know what? Let's just, you know, we can't go back to where we came from, so let's make a place and go back to it. You know, just give up the whole uniting with humanity thing and being seen as like real humans and like, no, we're just gonna leave. We're gonna prove you right and just leave and go somewhere else and just separate ourselves from humanity. It seemed like Charles Xavier admitting defeat. I hated the whole concept of the Krakoa era. It just seemed to go completely in the face of everything X-Men was ever supposed to stand for, especially, yes, all of the, you know, the allegories that it was supposed to represent. Just really, really bad. Really, really bad. You spend the day with the first thing in front of you. What are you doing? My monitor is the first thing in front. Do you mean the first thing on the desk? Because the first thing on the desk right now is like my figurines for Chrono Trigger. These guys. So I guess I'm playing Chrono Trigger all day, which I could think of worse ways to spend a day. And yeah, the last one is just a rude comment. Don't come in here and yuck someone else's yums. Don't come in here just to bash on the 86 movie. Oh, you think it's overrated and you don't like it. Good for you. We don't care. Leave your negativity at the door. And at that, I'm going to leave this video here. So that is the Q&A for the month. As always, please keep the rules in mind. If you have a question you would like to have answered next month, then please leave it in the comments below. One question per person. Short, punchy answers so we can get through everything as quick as possible. If you have a comment for the video, please mark it as such. And please don't ask me about Gundam, Gun Megatron, or various other things. There should be a post at the top pinned to give you the rule rundown just in case. So please just follow that. Keep it TOS friendly. And yeah. This has been yet another very, very long Q&A video. Thank you to everyone who stuck it out. I appreciate it greatly. And as always, I will see you next time.